Clock. We'll call this meeting to order. Please mute your cell phones and other electronic devices so we don't interrupt the meeting. We're at the Winnetka Village Council regular meeting, October 7th, 2025. And I'll ask Manager Kristen Kazinas to do a roll call for attendance.
Trustee Handler. Here. Trustee Albinson.
Here.
Trustee Orsick.
Present.
Trustee Myers.
Here.
Trustee Apatoff.
Here.
Trustee Dahlman. Here. President Dearborn.
Here. And I would like to ask Trustee Orsick to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Trustee Orsick. Item 3, adoption of procedural guidelines for Village Council meetings. 3A, procedural guidelines for Village Council meetings. Tonight, Village Attorney Peter Friedman will review amendments to the Village's procedural guidelines for council meetings. And Attorney Friedman is going to present, and then we'll ask council for questions.
Thank you. So what's before you tonight are amendments to your current procedural guidelines for Village Council meetings, specifically to add rules that govern public comment. The Illinois Open Meetings Act requires that public comment be allowed, and the Attorney General and the courts have said that municipalities can provide rules for that public comment, but they need to be in writing, and that's what many municipalities have done. The village considered these rules, these specific rules, or a variant of these rules, at the beginning of COVID, and decided to pass on that because COVID was presenting so many reasons and difficulties with regard to public comment. But is our recommendation and the village manager's recommendation that that the village now go ahead and adopt official written rules. Having said that, what's before you is very, very generally memorializing your current practice. These are rules for public comment, not for public hearings. They provide for a 3-minute rule for each public comment and a 30-minute total. The public comment is for matters that are not on the agenda. And they also provide general rules about the public comments being non-repetitive, that public comment presenters should address the village board, not the audience or staff, and that public comment be courteous, polite, and civil, non-threatening, and not creating disorder or disruption. So those are generally what they do. The adoption of these really should not change anything about how the village handles public comment right now. I will say that when it comes to maintaining order, these rules are not the exclusive rules or authority. The village president has inherent authority, regardless of these rules, to prohibit breaches of order and decorum. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Attorney Friedman? The only question I had, Peter, was we say that these are guidelines for village council meetings. I think it's for lower boards and commissions as well.
Yeah, and they state so right at the beginning. It says are intended to provide for all subsidiary public bodies of the village.
And we'll be talking, staff will be talking to the chair of Design Review Board and Plan Commission, et cetera, right, on this?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, great. Okay, any other questions for Peter before we ask for public comment? I'd like to ask for any public comment from the audience. Please direct your comments to Village Council. State your name and 3 minutes.
Do you really want to start that state my name thing?
Yes?
I don't feel comfortable stating my name. Am I going to be barred from public comment unless I state it?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. He's not going to fight that one. Also, I feel a little uneasy with this heavily militarized, highly armed individual standing immediately behind me. Is there a reason why the police officer is now in such a threatening posture for people that are making comments? The police have been here. They've always sat in the back. Now it's
your public comment time is running.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I saw these new things, and I find this fascinating. I'm trying to decide if this is a way for the village attorney to get more billable hours, because many of the rules here are a little questionable. As you know, you have the right to have rules that address order and decorum. So, you know, that's fine, but you don't have you can't make rules to address speech. And certainly, Attorney Friedman must have been instructed on the Brandenburg decision, you know, federal law from the Supreme Court about what is and isn't allowable as free speech. And so the rule about a speaker may, that is imminently threatening to any person, that incites violence or that is obscene. So that is insufficient. That is a violation of the Brandenburg rule. Because the Brandenburg rule, and I'll quote, is speech that is a violation is where such advocacy is directed to inciting or producing imminent lawless action, and it is likely to incite or produce such action. So to say, like, you're going to ban, like, someone talking about potentially lawless action or threats if there isn't a clear danger, and I would say with a heavily armed, militarized gentleman standing 3 feet behind a presenter here, with more lethal weapons on him than, you know, I could, you know, put anywhere, I think it's pretty clear that there is no imminent threat. So if you're going to start enforcing these rules, and the reason you didn't ask me to demand that I state my name is because you know that I was going to file a request. The OMA has never determined that names are required, and there's a good chance that they would say that names are not. I mean, this is just wrong. So I'll be back in a few minutes to talk about the other matter, and we'll kind of go from there.
Okay, thank you. Would any others in the audience like to speak on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment, and we'll ask council for any comments, discussion on this item. Trustee Myers?
Nope, no comment.
Trustee Apatow?
It's pretty clear.
Trustee Dahlman?
No comment.
Trustee Handler? No comment. Trustee Alvinson? Trustee Orsick? Okay. Be that as it may I have a motion to adopt the amended procedural guidelines for village council meetings?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you, Attorney Friedman. Quorum check. Kristen, how about a quorum check?
So our next 3 meetings, we have the October 14th study session, the October 21st regular meeting, and then the all-day budget review meeting on October 30th. Does everyone expect to attend?
I will be out of town, but I anticipate trying to Zoom on the 21st.
Thank you.
Okay, October is a big month, so thank you, everyone, for being able to attend. All right, we'll move to item 5, public comments. I'd like to ask if anyone in the audience wants to speak about an item not on tonight's agenda. If you would like to state your name,
Sure.
feel
My
free.
name's Roy Berlin, resident of Winnetka, and this is going to take less than 3 minutes. Very lighthearted stuff, but the pier at the Tower Road Beach is crumbling, and I brought some pictures. So you guys have been down there who know, and I talked to Tina at the market the other day, a couple weeks ago. This is a picture, and I can pass it around, of the Glencoe Pier, which is super nice. And I know we've got 3 beaches here to worry about, and Glencoe only has 1, but the pier down at Tower Road Beach has chain link fence, it has crumbling concrete, it has exposed rebar. It's really unsafe and unsightly. So I think something should be done, and I encourage you guys to do it. If you want to pass these photographs around, you can have them.
Thank you.
That's my comment.
And would someone reach out to Mr. Berlin and provide a status report on where we stand on the pier?
Yes, staff will follow up.
All right, someone will get back to you, Mr. Berlin. Thank you very much. Public comment.
Hi. So, hey, first off, I think it's great you're putting solar panels. I have to say that now in case I get tackled and, dragged out of the meeting here in a second. So, yes, a couple of weeks ago, I was here because I was shocked that a the village would allow someone to post a sign threatening gun violence on the shore of Lake Michigan near the Cherry Street beach end on public land. So, you know, again, this is a First Amendment thing. You know, sure, they could put that sign on their own land. Whether it really meets the criminal statute of threatening language is a hard thing to know. But it's not on their own land, it's on the public beach. And I was pointing out that, you know, it's shocking that the village allows that to persist and allows that sign to sit there saying that you'll get shot if you come onto this land when that's public land. But other people will be, you know, treated differently. And, you know, you can enforce decorum and order all you want, right? I'm not up here screaming, I'm not up here yelling, I haven't gotten in a fist fight with the village attorney. I'm just talking, I'm using speech. Speech is permissible. As we've already discussed, I can say most things. And so I came up here and I said, and I'm going to quote from your letter to me, I said, hypothetically speaking, if I were to come up here and say something, quote, from your letter, you never know when something might happen, right? Like if, you know, it's a fascinating thing. If I were to come in here or if anybody were to come in here, if I'm using if, and say you guys are crazy and I'm going to shoot all of you.
All right.
So
That's out of order. That comment is out of order. I'm going to ask you not to talk about that type of language, please. If you have a problem with that, you can
Well, I have
take action after the meeting, but not at this meeting, Ted, not at this meeting.
So my point is, and, well, if you're going to let me finish, then I can't
I
really
don't want to hear any more of that letter. That language or in that letter.
So you're not allowing me to finish my comments?
I don't want to hear anything like that language.
So, okay, so I don't feel that I was out of order. I don't think I broke decorum. I understand that you're concerned about the statements, but I was trying to point out the difference in how I am treated by this village council when I use speech and how people that have houses on the lake are treated when they use threatening and violent behavior or violent words on public land by the lake shore. So I'll stop now. I was unable to complete my comments, and I'll ask.
I don't know that's true. I just think you completed your comment.
No, you said I can't continue.
You can't use that language.
So
Not in this meeting.
I'm only reading from the letter, and so the language is not a problem. The language is language. It's words. It's speech.
Ted, we're at 3 minutes.
Okay, so I wasn't allowed to finish my comments. I'm sorry.
Mr. Wychenko, you were allowed to finish your comments, and the Illinois Attorney General has disagreed with you on that. The village is following, and it's position that the village president just says consistent with what the Illinois Attorney General said about that specific language. The only thing the village president is doing is telling you not to use that language that the Illinois Attorney General confirmed it was okay to declare out of order.
I feel like you're misrepresenting what the Attorney General wrote in their letter, and that's okay, because that's not what they said. They basically said that since I was allowed to finish my comments, nothing had happened. But in this case, I am not being allowed to finish my comments.
That is not true.
Then can I continue what I wanted
No,
to
you
say?
may not. 3 minutes has
Okay,
passed.
thank you very much. I have not been allowed. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to make public comment tonight? Come on up.
Hello there. Dave Carnes. This is about an agenda item on the agenda this
You're going
evening.
to have to hold off until the agenda item.
Okay,
Sorry about that.
very good.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyone else, public comment? Okay, with that, we'll close public comment, and we'll go on to reports. We'll start with trustees. I'll start at this end. Trustee Handler. Trustee Albinson.
No report.
Trustee Orsick.
No report.
Trustee Dahlman.
Yeah, just a quick report from the farmer's market. I forgot to include in my written comments to Kristen. Apparently, the wasp nest at the train station has migrated from the speaker to behind some of the steps. So if we could have some of our folks take a look at removing the wasp nest. I think it's still in the speaker, too. Thank
Okay.
you. We'll follow up.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Trustee Apatow.
No report tonight.
Trustee Myers.
No report.
Okay, village attorney.
No report. Oh, I do have a report. Good report, I think.
Hello.
I am providing an update on the litigation that was filed against the village by a number of property owners along the lake regarding the village's steep slope and lakefront construction and development regulations that were adopted a couple of years ago. The owners had filed a complaint in federal court. The village had moved to dismiss the complaint. The judge ruled last week that the federal claim, the only federal claim in the complaint, she ruled in favor of the village and dismissed that count, which was a count for takings. And she found that it was not ripe and could not be brought at this time. That was the argument the village made. She provided that the plaintiffs had until October 30th to file, if they want to, an amended complaint. If no amended complaint is filed, the case will be closed in federal court. If an amended complaint is filed, we'll have to review it and make a further decision on how to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. Manager Kazinas?
No report.
My only report is we welcome to the chair here, Kristen Kazinas, new village manager, which we're very excited about. Pretty much what I have. So now, we'll go to the establishment of the consent agenda. Does any trustee wish any item on the consent agenda for a separate vote? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the final form of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor? Oh,
Aye.
Oh, final form, go.
is that a voice vote? Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
I just have a correction.
Oh.
The September 9th, I guess I need to make a motion to amend the minutes from September.
We just need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
hang on one second. So now we're going to go to the approval of consent agenda, and Manager Kazinas will read, or the village clerk will read the consent agenda.
Approval of the village council minutes for the September 9th, 2025 regular meeting and study session, and the September 16th, 2025 regular meeting. Approval of the warrant list dated September 12th, 2025 to October 2nd, 2025 in the amount of $3,324,108.10. Resolution number R73, 2025, approving an agreement with Safeway Tuck Pointing LLP for masonry repairs to structures at the Winnetka Electric Plant. Resolution number R75, 2025, approving funding authorization and a change order number 4 to the contract with Maple Cable Construction Incorporated for directional boring work. Resolution number R77, 2025, appointing a director to the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County. And resolution number R78, 2025, approving and authorizing a Class A liquor license for Lil Miguel LLC, DBA Fondita Miguel.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by omnibus vote?
Second.
Do we have any comments on the consent agenda?
I just have a slight correction on the September 9th minutes. I was late to that meeting. It shows me as absent, so I want the record to reflect.
Okay, without objection, can that amendment be made?
Nope.
Okay, for the record. Thank you, Tina.
Yep.
Now we have a second?
Yeah,
That's a
Second.
All right, that's a roll call vote.
Trustee Apatow?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Myers?
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you very much. We move to item 9, ordinances and resolutions. 9A, ordinance number MC 13-2025, amending Title 10 of the Winnetka Village Code regarding electric bicycles. And this is to be considered for introduction and possible adoption. Tonight, council will consider regulation of low-speed electric bicycles amid growing safety concerns with the increase in the use of such devices in the village. With us tonight is Police Chief Brian O'Connell to present.
Thank you, President Dearborn. Welcome. Good evening, Council. I'm here to present consideration for the ordinance regarding electric bicycles. So what I'd like to do first is briefly discuss and walk through the ordinance as it's written, and then open up for some other considerations and some concerns that have been heard throughout the time that we've been presenting over the following weeks. So first, I would like to start with the operating regulations under subsection P. This was an opportunity for us to address some of the concerns specific to the business district in bicycles in general. As we have discussed in prior meetings, electric bicycles are now defined under the Illinois Vehicle Code, defined as bicycles. So this was an opportunity for us to specifically highlight the concerns in the community as it pertains to the sidewalks in our business district. And that would be for all bicycles, not just electric bikes. So we would be prohibiting those. We would allow for walking of those on the sidewalks. So I just wanted to highlight that real quick before we get into specifically the electric bikes. Under definitions, low-speed electric bicycle, fully operational pedals with electric motor less than 750 cc's. This is pretty standard across the board and what we've been seeing with other municipalities in the definition. This includes all Class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes. So the big difference when we talk about Class 1, 2, and 3 e-bikes is Class 1 and 2s are somewhat similar in their speed requirements. Class 3 speed at 20 miles an hour. Class 3 speed maxes out at 28 miles an hour with a 16-year-old age requirement for Class 3. So when it comes to operational restrictions under B, it was a decision to split these out into two different sections. Class number 1 is for the Class 1 and the Class 2 bike specific. We would be at the age of 16 after consideration and what has been spoken about here at previous meetings is appreciating some limitations and some having the ability to obtain a driver's license. You'll see in the language here that we're requiring solely just the age of 16 to operate a Class 1, 2 e-bike. Class 3, obviously, like I said before, is through the Illinois Vehicle Code, already listed at 16. That's out of our control. We are going to prohibit its use under the age of 16, but at the age of 16, we are going to make allowances, as I'm presenting them to you tonight, for village-owned areas of our community. So village-owned parking lots, bike paths, the Green Bay Trail will have allowances for, and other areas in an signed agreement with the village at or over the age of 16 years old. Except, and here's an agreement or a decision that we made here for your consideration is allowing the age under age 16 if they're in the presence of a parent or an adult. So allowing those in those areas when they're accompanied by an adult. Number 2 under that section specifically highlights the Class 3 electric bike. Like I said, that's already in the Illinois Vehicle Code for the age of 16. We just separated that with the specific age for Class 3, along with allowing someone under the age of 16 to be a passenger on an electric bike that has been made to accommodate a passenger. So we discussed that as well. Number 3, every person operating a low-speed electric bike on the public street within the corporate limits must comply with all the rules and regulations set forth in Section 11-15 of the Illinois Vehicle Code. This is specific to all the rules for bicycles under that section. We did note in here requiring that electric low-speed bicycles must not exceed the posted speed limit. We are not going to allow any of these low-speed electric bikes to be altered in any way from their original manufacturer design. And it would be unlawful for any person to operate a low-speed electric bicycle that carries more than one passenger which it is not designed to do. So if you look at C, the location restrictions, it really does differ a lot from our electric scooter and e-moto ordinance, where the only restriction here is to prevent the operation of the low-speed electric bike on the public sidewalk. And then it notes the village's business district. But again, like I have mentioned before in meetings, prohibiting the use of electric bikes on sidewalks is something that the state decided. It is not something that we can control. We can't lessen what the state has already governed. We can allow, and it is allowed, bicycles on the public sidewalk. So pedal bicycles on the sidewalk is allowed. The state has specifically carved out prohibited use on the public sidewalk from an electric bike. I won't get into the detail about the required equipment. It's very similar to bicycle use. Proper lighting, lamps and reflection, brakes. We do have a requirement here that it is unlawful for them to operate while carrying a package in any type of manner. It prevents the safe operation. And then we did add the language about the requirement of wearing a helmet. When it comes to the requirement of wearing a helmet, Highland Park adopted the same language. Glencoe did not adopt that same language, but Deerfield did. So Highland Park and Deerfield require the helmet. Glencoe does not have language to date. Adult responsibility, very similar to what you saw in the electric scooter and e-moto, and the penalty would remain consistent across the board with this as well. So that concludes the review of what is being proposed for your consideration tonight with the ordinance. Again, I just want to highlight we do want to appreciate what has been discussed here over the last couple weeks, and you're seeing some municipalities restrict its use on bike paths. You're allowing some others. Appreciating that people use the Green Bay Trail and want to travel south to north all the way up to Highland Park, back down to Evanston. We are making that allowance here tonight. I am recommending that allowance here tonight, but appreciating that there is a level of maturity and respecting the capability of these devices, operating them in a safe manner is where we landed at the age of 16. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
All right, questions for Chief O'Connell from the council at this point?
No. Person, does that mean that someone can't attach the kind of, say, like a bike seat to hold a toddler over behind the adult passenger?
That would not be prohibited. If it's designed to make attachments like that, that would be allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, thank you very much. I appreciate the dialogue over the months, looking at this, speaking with me and other council members individually to go through all these considerations. It means a lot to me personally. Again, I'm not an e-bike owner, but I believe that this is a improving technology, and I think it's potentially a future alternative that could be comparable to using automobiles in our community. And I'm just, maybe I'm making more of a statement instead of asking a question, but so I appreciate the dialogue and making the changes to this, separating from the e-scooters and the e-bikes, or the e-motos. I do have some commentary that is more about how we address this moving forward, but I'll at least bring it up now with you at the podium to at least give some thoughts on it or comments. I brought up via conversation and an email exchange that we do have areas within our community where bicycles are not permitted on the roadway. And so maybe this is more of a rhetorical question, because we're right now subject to state laws that prohibit e-bikes on sidewalks, and in situations or within our community where e-bikes are not, or bicycles are not permitted on the roadway essentially means that e-bikes are not permitted in that, let's say, that corridor, whether it be on the sidewalk or on the road. Two examples of this would be the ravines area, but the other, which I would argue would be less traveled by, let's say, folks using e-bikes theoretically. But the one area that does come to mind is Hill Road between New Trier East, or the Winnetka campus, and New Trier in Northfield. And I'm just curious if you've given any thought or had any discussions with staff on, maybe not necessarily a policy standpoint, but what would we do for enforcement or consideration of whether it be students or folks within the community that want to use e-bikes and go to our business districts and need to use that corridor?
So I appreciate the question. I think it was a really good catch of the attention to detail by you seeing this. I think if I could address the ravines first, the ravines are prohibited with bicycle use now for several reasons. It is a very dangerous length of roadway on a bicycle, with not just the slopes, the steep slopes involved in it, but the turns and the vehicles not being able to see somebody approaching. I don't see a big adjustment there because there's not sidewalks there anyway. So we're prohibiting bicycles and people that use that length of Sheridan Road have become accustomed to turning down Tower Road, taking Old Green Bay and connecting back up in Glencoe. So I don't necessarily see that being impacted by this ordinance. I do believe that you did identify something that would have an impact on this ordinance specific to Hill Road. I don't want to speak for the history of this because these signs have been in place arguably long before I was a police officer here. But I believe that the spirit of those signs were to address the concerns of the volume of traffic that was coming in and out of New Trier on bicycles. And so prohibiting them on the roadway, safety, of course, but I can only assume that was also the pure volume taking over the roadway or causing traffic concerns as regard to student travel back and forth to school. Now, that doesn't address the people that live in that area and what this prohibits for them. I understand it. I respect it. But the additional restriction that has been placed upon those residents is not by us. The additional restriction, owning an e-bike, has been placed upon them in those areas by the state. They have prohibited the use of these on public sidewalks. I wish I had a better answer for them, and I will take the time to go back and look at these areas and try and obtain history from them, but the state has placed that additional restriction on them. What I can say to you now in consideration of this ordinance is that they would have to walk that stretch with that bike and then get into an area of our community that is not prohibited on the roadway if they're above 16. So for specifically, if you live on Hill Road in that stretch, you cross the street, walk in that electric bike, and you get on Woodland Avenue, or you get over towards Wilson, and then you get up on your way. Is that an inconvenience for those residents? Yeah, I see that. Unfortunately, it is. But I have to fall back on that. That's not a restriction that I'm putting on anyone in this ordinance. That is something that the state is following in regards to this bike, this device.
Understood. Thank you, Chief.
Yep, of course.
Trustee Orsic? No? Trustee Dahlman?
Yeah, just to clarify, and I think you said this, but just to be really clear, if you're 16 years old and your parents, whatever, permit this, you can commute down the Green Bay Trail all the way, I think, from Highland Park, right, on the trail. We're not, so long as you meet the age restriction, we're not, for anybody who's age qualified, can use the Green Bay Trail with their e-bike
That's
For
correct.
Class 1 and 2.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And I appreciate all the changes and the thought that has gone into this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Trustee Apatow.
Sure. Thank you. I also appreciate that you've looked at this hard and found, I think, what I think is a pretty balanced, measured plan going forward. I love the idea of the helmets as well. I've seen too many bad things happen to friends, and some are irreversible. So I think that's smart. I'm a big, don't get me wrong, I'm a big e-bike fan. I own several e-bikes. But I also realize the speeds they can get up to, and it's you know, the age limit, I understand why the state did that and why we're doing that too. And we're still, I want to make sure we're still, so in the business district, they will just handle like any other bike where they, if they're in it, they have to walk it just like any other bike.
Yeah, the business district, correct, yes, the
Streets
business
or
district.
sidewalks, either way.
Well, they could operate the bicycle on the roadway.
They can still, okay.
They can, but all bicycles defined under this section of the Illinois Vehicle Code would be required to be walked in this section of the sidewalk.
Okay. Are we making progress on that? I still see a lot of people
We
on
are.
bikes.
We're educating often. I think this is going to help us in additional support
Okay,
to further that cause.
great. No, that's great. Thank you.
Trustee Myers?
That's a question about the ordinance, and maybe you want to tackle this later. But what lessons have we learned as we've tried to enforce and enact the scooter regulation? Are there any changes you're envisioning in terms of the communication and the enforcement to this ordinance? Any?
So we've been working with the communications department of the village and preparing the response for all of these. I was optimistic that we could get this in front of you soon so that we could have one message that we could begin to share with area schools, the Park District, our high school. But like any new change, any new requirements placed upon people, I believe that there's a time for education first. And be able to work collaboratively with different entities to share the message. There is a time to address egregious behavior, but for the most part, my goal is to have everybody with a good understanding of this before any type of enforcement would take place. But we're looking to begin that after your decision here tonight.
One more
Okay.
One more
Go ahead,
thing.
Rob. Sure.
I've rarely received so many unsolicited thank yous from residents that this was passed, because a lot of people have had close calls, or the scooters, yeah,
scooter.
and the motorbikes. It was remarkable how many people came out and said thank you.
Okay. Chief, just a couple clarifications. One to Trustee Dahlman's point on the Green Bay Trail. So just to clarify, 1 and 2 are allowed on the Green Bay Trail for people over 16 years of age, or under 16.
Yeah, no, I apologize if that was I
probably missed it.
misunderstood
Probably
you.
missed it.
All 3 classes are allowed on the Green Bay Trail.
Okay. All 3 are allowed on the trail, and 1 and 2 for children under 16 if they're accompanied by their adult guardian or parent.
That's correct.
Okay. And is that similar to what Glencoe provides for, Highland Park provides? I mean, can someone traverse the entire stretch based on our ordinance, or are they going to have to change when they get up to Harbor or whatever?
So Glencoe did not address the Green Bay Trail, so that's allowable. When it comes to, excuse me, give me a second.
And we'll, yeah.
When it comes to Highland Park, Highland Park discusses the language upon any public street, sidewalk, parking lot, bicycle path, or any other public property within the corporate limits of the city. So they don't specifically call out a specific name of the Green Bay Trail like we have.
Okay.
And that's similar language in Deerfield.
Kenilworth, Wilmette, Maybe
You know,
we'll-
I think-
Maybe
I
we'll put
think-
that in our communications of some sort. I mean, because people do, they go all the way, back and forth. And so people should know where things change, I guess.
Yeah, Wilmette doesn't have anything in place right now, neither does Kenilworth.
Okay.
I would be hopeful that we would
Okay.
collaborate on that as well.
Okay. And will there be additional signage on the trail regarding electric bicycles and scooters, motorized vehicles?
Yeah, that's in discussion with staff right now.
Okay, that's in discussion, okay. And then for the protective equipment, the helmets, trustee Apatow mentioned the benefit. The definition of the helmet, no face guards, no nothing like that, just a bike helmet.
So
Is that standard?
So even surprisingly, helmets are not required in the Illinois Vehicle Code for equipment to be used while riding your bicycle. So there's nothing about mouth guards or any additional protection regarding, personal equipment. I would highly recommend wearing personal equipment and protective equipment, and that's why you're seeing it in the ordinance for these types of devices. But riding a bicycle does not require a helmet.
Okay, all right. Why don't we open this up for public comment? I'll ask for any members of the public who would like to make a comment on this topic to please come up to the podium and direct your comments to Village Council.
Hello.
Welcome.
My name is Elise Gibson, and I'm the president of the Winnetka Park District. And at your last meeting where you passed an ordinance regarding e-scooters, I was comfortable with having some of the Park District property included because under our conduct ordinance 504, we already have a prohibition on e-scooters. You had a prohibition with respect to age restrictions, but you did not have it with respect to location. And that was okay. Here, you've also included Park District property in your restrictions. And I'm not objecting to it, but I'm asking that you give us time to study it at our October 23rd meeting, and so that we can sort of understand how you're covering our properties in this ordinance. This was surprising to me.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council here, and maybe folks have a thought on President Gibson's comment there.
I'm sorry, can we just get some clarification where in this
Okay.
Park District is?
Yeah, I would
Chief, are
ask,
you
I
aware
would
of this?
defer to Peter on this.
Where is the Park District referenced in this?
It is not. In fact, we specifically addressed this in both 1 and 2. The restriction applies to public streets, public sidewalks, village-owned bike paths, the Green Bay Trail, and village-owned parks, village-owned parks and village-owned parking lots. So Winnetka Park District Park, this does not apply to,
Who owns the Green Bay Trail?
the village.
Got it.
Come on up, Elise, come on up. Let's just make sure we're on the same page on this.
This might be just a drafting difference. So after it says has entered into an agreement with any property owner, comma, or any other public property within the corporate limits of the village. That's the language that concerns me.
Where are you, Elise?
I see.
I'm in B, under operational restrictions, B1.
B1.
And the same language appears under B2.
Okay.
Any other public property?
So by default, that's referencing Park District property, school district property.
Or library.
Yeah,
or
that's,
library.
that was not the intent. I think it's referring to the parking lots, but
Can we,
we can fix that to clarify. That was not the intent.
Okay, thank you.
is there a simple fix on that right here that we could amend this?
We do intend to address e-bikes, for sure.
Okay. Elise, if we adjust that, if we amend that language, would you object to us moving forward? Okay. Can we?
I'll work on it.
Okay. All right, other questions before we move forward for the chief?
No, it's good.
So then just to confirm, if we remove that, which
Or amend it?
then the Park District would pass there, and then the school district would pass what they wanted for their property, so
they
residents
certainly could.
and libraries, so the residents would have to understand effectively 4 different e-bike ordinances, is that, or regulations? Is that where we're heading?
Well,
Is that-
I don't know, I think the park, well, go ahead, chief.
I don't think that's the spirit of what this is. I think when we drafted this language, it wasn't the intent to have anybody perceive that it was the park district. But if there's regulations that each separate entity wish to pass, that would be their decision to make, not ours.
And then if they wanted us to enforce those, they'd need to have an intergovernmental agreement with us to do that.
Right.
Okay, I mean, I'm just thinking of residents understanding
Yeah,
this.
and to
think
follow
that-
up on that, I mean, e-bikes are on roads. We own the roads. So all this other stuff is very ancillary and really is not going to be an issue. Like if somebody starts their e-bike in the public library parking lot or the Nielsen Tennis Center parking lot, we're not even talking about, I don't understand where it would be.
Practicality-wise.
Yeah.
You know, the park does have some considerable space. I'm guessing there'll be some alignment here. But with schools, I don't see that as.
Do you have a suggestion?
Yeah, I want to talk to the chief first, so go ahead and take public comment, or you guys start discussing.
We're about to vote on this.
Have any discussion?
Well, we're having a discussion.
I know, so keep having. She thinks there's more public comment.
There's more public, from us? Is there any more public comment on this topic? President Gibson? Sure, of course. Of course.
The intention is simply that we haven't looked at it, but we would like to be aligned, as I said, with regard to e-bikes and so forth. Having signage that is consistent throughout the village is by far the best approach, and so we'd like to be aligned. The only thing is we may be more prohibitive. And yes, you know, e-bikes, there are bike paths, we do have a campus, and we may not want people riding e-bikes on the campus
enough,
and so forth. However, we just haven't even broached it. Our plan was to wait and hear about what the village was doing, and then at our October 23rd meeting to address it, so that we're working consistently.
Well, if you're going to be more restrictive, I don't see I
No.
don't see any delay necessary from our end,
Right.
right?
We don't know, though.
Yeah.
I can't speak for the board
But
on that.
I do think that, Chief, you've been speaking with school district on this, as I recall, certainly on the scooter side, probably on the e-bike side as well. Certainly, there should be conversations between staff, park district staff, village staff, coordinate signage and everything.
Right.
I totally agree with that.
Okay.
So we can make that happen.
Good.
Okay. Any other thoughts up here, Scott?
Well, I would like to move forward on this with making an amendment just to that phrase, and it looks like, Peter, you've got some suggestions.
We would just recommend that whoever makes the motion to approve the ordinance, motions be to improve the ordinance, but to delete, remove from B1 and 2, the language or any other public property within the corporate limits of the village, that phrase just get deleted from both sections.
Any other village property in case there's something in that list above that hadn't been thought of, so I think that list above is pretty comprehensive.
Parking lots are listed up above. I mean,
Right.
But just saying, and obviously you felt there was a reason to put in any other, but if we just put any other village
We can do that as well.
Kim, what would you say? Or any other village-owned property?
Just change village property, so we're just changing,
change the word public to village.
we're just changing the public to village.
Okay, all right, well, the first, okay, so that, we'll close the comments up here. First off, this could be introduced, or we could waive introduction and go right to adoption. What's the thinking on that?
I think we should waive introduction.
Sure. Okay with that?
Are we still making comments, or are we,
We weren't going to, but you can certainly make a comment.
is now the time to make a comment?
Is that about e-bikes?
Yes.
Yes, now's the time.
I'll just, I started going on a tangent earlier during the question part for Chief. I just want to say thank you, Chief. I'm in support of what's being proposed here. I believe this is a good foundation. From what you've told us in the past, that other communities are looking to us as a little bit of a, whether it be a sounding board or setting a bit of precedent moving forward. I think this is measured, balanced. Maybe this comes up again in the future as we reconsider our planning efforts around improving bike access throughout the community, not just whether it's e-bikes or regular bicycles. And I'd be open for that dialogue to help improve the promoting of use of bicycles, or let's say non-vehicle transportation. But thank you, Chief, and thank you to staff for all the effort on this.
Okay. Thank you, Kirk. Back to waiving introduction. How do we feel down here? Are we okay with that? So, if that's the case, whoever's going to make this motion, please make the motion with the adjusted language to those sections. Well, hang on, Kim. Do I have a motion to waive introduction of ordinance number MC13, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No nays? No nays. All right. May I have a motion to adopt ordinance number MC13, 2025?
With the amendments, tell me if I'm, to section B1, where we changed the word public to village in section B1, and then in B2, same thing where it says, I'm looking for the phrase, or any other public property, change that to any other village property within the corporate limits of the village.
Okay. May I have a second to that amended motion?
Second.
Okay, that's a roll call vote.
Trustee Handler,
Yes?
Trustee Albinson,
Yes.
Trustee Orsick,
Yes.
Trustee Dahlman,
Yes.
Trustee Apatow,
Yes.
Trustee Myers.
Yes.
Okay, Chief, thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you,
Chief.
Thank you.
For that.
Appreciate it.
Council, thanks very much for that thoughtful comments. And President Gibson, thank you for your comments. We appreciate that. Now we move to item B, resolution number R68, 2025, approving a contract with RPG Energy Group for the design and installation of a solar photovoltaic PV array, and this is being considered for adoption. Tonight, council will consider a contract with RPG Energy Group for the installation of a solar PV array at the village yards. Assistant, oh, that's not the assistant water and, oh, there's Sam.
I'm just
Okay.
the AV guy.
Oh, you're the AV?
Yeah.
Water and Electric Director Sam Carrasco to present the technical and financial project overview. Sam?
Just waiting for
How's
the,
your AV guy doing, Sam?
not great.
Not great? Oh, geez. Yeah.
Any jokes?
Sam, do you have just like,
Guess I
song?
shouldn't-
Can you do this in song or?
Shouldn't quit my day job, I guess.
There you go.
One's better than none. Okay. Sorry about that.
I don't think it's on. Oh, there you go.
Okay, welcome, Sam.
Good evening, President Dearborn, council members. The village manager's office, represented by Elise Steiner, sustainability coordinator, and myself as representing the water and electric department, are tonight very excited to present this Winnetka Yard rooftop solar PV array project for your consideration. This is a very important step forward to demonstrate the village commitment in creating a more sustainable environment, in this particular case by self-generating renewable energy to serve the yard facilities. The agenda for tonight is to give you a project overview and technical design plans, cost and financial analysis, environmental considerations, and recommendation to council. Not too long ago, we're discussing the IMEA renewable power purchase agreement. We were made aware about how us, the Village of Winnetka, as IMEA member, are eligible to install qualifying renewable generation up to an aggregate total of 150 kilowatt of nameplate capability without board approval. However, on the early stage of this project, the village identified the need of a larger system that could satisfy the energy needs of the yards. That's when Water and Electric Director requested formally a waiver to increase this cap above the 150 kilowatts. On August 21st, 2025, IMEA Board of Directors approved a limited variance of a small renewable generation resource policy for the Village of Winnetka to allow a maximum aggregate kilowatt limit of 275 kilowatts. The rooftop solar project is considering install solar panels on buildings A and B at the yard facilities and are expected to produce around 330 megawatt hours a year, which in addition to the existing 10 kilowatt system already installed in 2023, this is roughly around 92% of the annual electricity used at the yards. We were provided with solid warranties, not just on the equipment, but also important on workmanship for 10 years that, along with the O&M agreement for 10 years, ensures a production guarantee, which is expected to experiment an annual degradation of 0.5% over the course of the year, but is still able to produce 87% at the year 25th. This is an aerial view where those solar panels will be installed. To the west, northeast is the Building A, which is a multi-departmental facility that houses Department of Engineering, Public Works, and Water and Electric Department. And Building B, which is the east, southeast. Building B, mostly used for public work, where they keep fleet and equipment, and also the mechanic shop. Based on the data provided by the vendor, selected vendor, it is estimated at 330 megawatt hour, separated by 166 megawatts hours of Building A and 163 megawatt hours on Building B. And as you can see, the production depends upon how much the sun is shining in a certain part of the year, which is pretty much between May and August, where we get the most power from those panels. How this project is funded, how much it costs. So the total net project cost is around $318,665, which is after the initial investment of $880,150 is considered to get an estimated credit, two different credits, the federal, the investment tax credit, or ITC, around $326,000, and the state Illinois Adjustable Block Program, ABP, around $234,000. This project is expected to be funded by around 70% by the general fund and 30% from the Water and Electric Fund. To get know a little more about the incentives provided by the federal and local government, I will pass on to Elise Steiner to provide more detail with that.
Welcome, Elise.
Yes, so on this next slide, I'm going to explain the mechanisms that we plan to take advantage of to reduce the project costs by close to 65% and to shorten the payback time. The 2022 Inflation Reduction Act created a pathway for tax-exempt municipalities to become eligible for clean energy federal tax credits for investments they make in renewable energy under a program known as elective pay, or sometimes called direct pay. And this project that we're considering tonight for solar panels, rooftop solar panels at the yard, is eligible for up to 40% elective pay investment tax credit, valued at about $326,000. There's 30% of that is a base credit that any project is eligible for, and then we get a 10% adder for being in an energy community that the IRS has defined on a map that includes basically the entire Chicago metro area. So that adds up to the 40%. And then to claim that tax credit, there's an application that is submitted after the system is placed in service. The recent changes to the tax code that were made in July of this year, they shortened the eligibility period for projects to qualify. So that's why we're kind of under the gun to act quickly and be able to take advantage of this tax credit before the December 31st deadline. We must begin construction by December 31st to qualify, and to demonstrate that construction has begun, we have to make a payment of at least 5%. And it's recommended by most project developers to bump that up to 7%, just to create a cushion in case any contingencies come along. But that's what we need to do to satisfy the criteria and meet the deadline. And then the system has to be placed in service within 4 years. And, you know, I know there's been a lot of uncertainty as to what some of these changes mean, and guidance, and, you know, things going on at the federal level, but we fully expect to qualify and receive the tax credit. There is a risk that, you know, things can change, so we can't make any guarantees, but as of today, our understanding is that what we're doing would qualify. The other mechanism that we plan to take advantage of to reduce the project costs is to sell the renewable energy credits, or RECs as they're called. This renewable energy credits came up in the IMEA discussions, but just to refresh people's memory, when you generate renewable energy, there are two things that are created. One is the energy itself and those electrons that, you know, keep your lights on, and the second is a renewable energy credit, which represents the attributes of that clean energy, and it's trackable and tradable and has monetary value. So there are registries that keep track of those RECs and make sure that they are being used properly and that there's no double counting. But you need those ownership of those RECs and able to make carbon reduction claims. So the financial analysis that Sam just presented in the previous slide assumes that we would commit to sell those RECs under this Illinois Shines adjustable block program for a fixed price of $53.40 per megawatt hour for a period of 15 years. And so that comes to a total benefit of about $235,000 towards the project cost, which, even though we're committing to sell those RECs over 15 years, there's an accelerated payment schedule over the first 7 years. And then when the RECs, again, just to be clear, that when those RECs are sold to another party, our project cannot claim those associated carbon reduction benefits to prevent any double counting. We would relinquish claim to those credits. And then the total incentives from the investment tax credit and the sale of these RECs adds up to about $560,000 and a break even after 8 years. And then as we wrap up, I just, you know, and Sam made mention of this, I just want to close with a reminder to all of us that, you know, as to why this project is important for the village of Winnetka, why this matters, and how the village is making an effort to walk the walk on its commitment to prioritize sustainability. In the Village 2040 Comprehensive Plan, there was a pillar committed, you know, devoted to environmental action and sustainability and climate action, and that was reconfirmed in June 2025 with the passage of the sustainability resolution, demonstrating that this council supports these actions to reduce environmental impacts and the harmful emissions that contribute to climate change. So this project to install 250 kilowatts of solar panels at the yards on buildings A and B is a really important step in that direction. It's something that we're doing locally, it's durable, it's highly visible, and, you know, our residents can see that this investment is being made in the community. The expected solar generation will replace more carbon-intensive grid generation. It'll help the village achieve long-term objectives of its upcoming climate action plan and demonstrate leadership on decarbonization. And this project will also have an online dashboard that can be used for educational purposes and community outreach to show what this project is contributing. And so with that, I would like to make the staff recommendation that the council approves Resolution R68, 2025 for this contract with RPG in the amount of $150 for the design, procurement, installation, operation, and maintenance of a 280 kilowatt rooftop solar PV array, and that it also simultaneously, as part of the project, enrolls in the Illinois Shines Adjustable Block Program to sell the project RECs for 15 years to help offset some of the costs.
Okay, thank you, Elise, and thank you, Sam. We'll bring it up here to the council for questions to staff at this point. Kim?
Yeah. Thank you.
And certainly the project looks like it was very affordable, given the paybacks. But my one question is are there any other markets to sell the RECs other than the Illinois Shines program? It seemed like locking in at that one particular price.
Yes, no, that's an excellent question. There is an open market where you can sell them bilaterally to other parties using brokers, and you can, which would give you more flexibility, not commit you to the 15-year period. The price is uncertain that you would receive. So it could fluctuate, it could be higher, it could be lower at any time.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Scott?
Sam, a couple questions for you on ongoing kind of operations and maintenance. So trying to understand what is the village's responsibility, what is RPG's responsibility, and I'm thinking specifically around both not only in maintaining the efficiency of the system, whether panels have to be replaced, cleaning of panels, things like that, as well as as I understand and read about the technology, inverters there can be efficiency gains as inverter technology improves. Is that on us to do that? Is that part of the contract? How does that get rolled into any operating and maintenance commitment?
Yes, so the operation and maintenance encompass monitoring the system, evaluating the production that is meant to produce energy on a yearly basis, do periodic inspection to detect potential degradation of certain equipment, and then recommend replacement. Those equipment are covered with warranty. It happens one of these fails during the warranty, that will be replaced at no cost. When the warranty expires and they identify that a piece of equipment is malfunctioning, that the village will cover the cost to replace the part, and if it's within the OEM agreement, that labor will be caused by them.
So failures within the warranty are obviously replaced, but if there are improvements in technology that would increase efficiency or enable us to connect batteries, for example, that's on us. That would be an added cost, I guess?
That will be an addition. That is not part of the OEM agreement.
Okay.
Rob?
Yeah, I'm adding on what you're talking about, O&M is my big question, which is, what is the warranty, first of all, on the mechanics and on the screens?
So there's two parts of the warranties. One is the equipment itself, which varies depending on if it's modules, could be 10, 15 years with a production, output guarantee up to 30 years, inverter 15 years, the racking 20 years, workmanship 10 years, depending. Now, there's a different, the production warranty, which is considering the 0.5% degradation annually, losses. So part of that production warranty would turn to be around 87% in year 25. That production warranty is kind of tied with the OEM. The vendor RPG is ensuring that the output producing this panel is within the frame they have offered in this contract.
So it's $880,000 total.
Total.
I'm looking at the O&M here. And that's enough, I'm just warning you, that's enough of a buffer to cover this for 10 years of O&M?
$63,000.
Yeah.
Seems, $6,000 a year, that's pretty low.
Yeah.
So what happened, I guess, is there the act of God provision where I've seen, pictures of, and I love this idea, I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it's the right thing to do. I'm just, whose responsibility is if we get a hailstorm and
The panels
and
are
the
all
panels
damaged.
all damaged?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
'Cause we do get hail here occasionally.
Yeah, I think for that I will kind of defer to similar other insurance policy like flooding or hail for houses or any other properties.
But that may be
that would be an extra add if the village elect to be covered for that. That's something that we can talk to the vendor and add.
No, I
it
think it's
on
great.
our-
We just have to look at that as the total cost. I ain't gonna do that for free, I'm sure.
So once the panels are installed, they'll become part of the building and be covered under the village's property.
Be great. Is that right?
insurance.
Okay. Those are the questions I'm just trying to make sure that there isn't another $50,000 of premium to cover panels on top of an insurance rider or some sort. As long as they're part of the building, that's great.
We could research what the additional insurance would be. It wasn't material when we installed the 10 array additionally.
Okay. Yeah, those are just questions I
Definitely
want to
is
make sure we
added
look at
to
all.
our insurance policy as part of the coverage.
Okay. Cool.
The other question I had is just given the length of the commitment on the, not just, workmanship, 10 years plus all the parts, what do we know about the financial stability of RPG? I mean, they had some interesting projects that they've done previously, but obviously this industry is under a little bit of stress given legislative changes. Have we dug into that, and do we know the strength of that organization?
Well, when we evaluate every single proposal, we certainly went to look what are the expertise based on the projects they have done. We can predict the shift of this in any other company will do, how it's gonna adjust to the existing regulations based on what we definitely evaluated as they have the expertise to do this project in the time frame we're expecting to do it.
I mean, I think that they seem to be the right people to do it. We may just want to continually investigate what their financial stability is and what options we have if it begins to look shaky. The industry, as I said, as we all know, is kind of, a little bit uncertain at this point. So looking at options, I think, might be worthwhile and keeping that in our back pocket.
Well, on that point, Sam, Nick, or Tim, did we look at the financial strength of this company? Okay, well,
need to.
we should probably do that before we can move forward on this, but we should probably do that.
One thing is, it does seem time is of the essence, since there's a pretty substantial credit, and we need to start. And if we lose that credit, it changes the finances of this project.
We might be able to pass this subject to, one last review of the financial strength of the company.
I mean,
Well, it's possible that our law firm could run a Dun & Bradstreet analysis of RPG, which would be a quick check.
That's so true.
Okay. Other comments down?
I mean, I would personally be in favor of moving forward on this at this point, given the time delay.
Right.
I think if anything comes back that's wildly shocking and unexpected on Dun & Bradstreet.
More expensive or
Insurance. Maybe we wait a week on signing the actual contract, but I think, I would want to move forward.
Okay, all right. Kirk?
You may have covered these points or questions, but will this connect seamlessly into the demonstration solar array that we currently have?
Yeah, when they presented the design, so if you see in the screen, the square that are black, and yeah. So on the building A northeast, those solid black are the 1610 kW panels. So they will seamlessly integrate, or they will be in addition. They will undo the actual connection to the switch and the meter, and they integrate as a whole to a new metering point.
Got it, thank you. Can you back up one more slide before this? So we've been approved to go up to 275 kilowatts. Let's say, whatever, the MDR, I think is the term that they, or no, this is not MDR.
No, renewable resource.
Okay,
Yeah.
renewable, okay. And then the second bullet talks about this will produce 330 megawatt hours in a year. How does that translate into, what is the percentage, or like as a percentage of the total of that approved 275?
So
Are you asking like a
Yeah.
capacity factor?
Yeah, well, we've been approved up to 275.
Right,
This
so-
will produce, and I don't know the megawatt, kilowatt, or megawatt hours conversion to
Right.
kilowatts, et cetera.
And this is when it gets a little bit tricky. So we are asking to have an installation of a 250 kilowatts AC, which is under the 175. The energy produced in a year adds to 330 megawatts hour. That is the sum of all the kilowatts in 365 years. But the actual capacity installed on the roof will be 250 kilowatt AC. So you still are under what we already got approved. So 250 plus 10, 260 kilowatts.
So it'll be 260, once this is installed, it'll be at 260, and we've been approved by IMEA to go up to 275.
Yes.
Yeah, I had that-
And this-
I had that question too, yeah.
Okay, and this is not related to the MDR with IMEA? It's a
No.
whole- That's a whole different thing.
At a later date, when finally we were able to come to fruition to this project, that will be a different conversation, and they will not be considered part of, oh, you already did 250, 260, that is deducted. No, this is a totally different installation, which is
Maybe
up
this-
to 10% of the village peak, which is right around 3.9 megawatts.
All right, so maybe this is a can of worms, we shouldn't even go there tonight. I'm just curious, like, if we just said, hey, this is great, let's go do solar on the whole landfill, then what? We'd have to go back and ask for more kilowatt, like beyond the 275, or is that a whole different topic?
No, and actually, this is part of what we talk about a little bit in the next presentation
Okay, got
about
it.
the
Then I'll-
landfill solar.
I'll hold that
Difference
question.
is what's considered behind the meter and in front of the meter.
Got it.
And so this project would be behind the meter.
Behind the meter.
If we did the landfill solar, that would be in front of
Okay,
the meter.
that helps a lot.
Is it- Am I getting that right, Nick?
So there was a strategy here to qualify this as the small renewable generation so that it didn't count against our MDR. So we're 250 plus the 10 is 260. So we can still do 15 more if that's 15 at public safety building or 15 at the power plant. We still have 15 kilowatts to play with somewhere in the village limits, but regardless, it doesn't count against our MDR. So we still have, if we move forward with this and then even go up to 275, we still have the full 10% MDR, which the landfill solar would count towards potentially. There's different ways to approach it, which I'll discuss in the next presentation.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Trustee Handler? Any
Other
questions?
comments, thank you.
Trustee Orsic? Fine. And the reason we're not going for the full 100% is we ran out of roof space. Did we maximize our capacity here out there at the yards?
Well, we could go like 100% or close to 100%. Part of the limits that we have is at this part not being part of the MDR and instead for our energy renewable program is to cover our load, not to oversupply. So we could run the numbers again and determine that those extra 15 kilowatts still are under, we can do it.
If we have overcapacity, can we sell that capacity back to the grid and get credit? Is that how that would work?
Yep. So
Come on,
I scan a little bit. We run this data, and as you can see, there will be pretty much 60% of the year where the panel will not produce enough power. Anything between January, March, and October and December will be under 40, 50% what the actually needs are. So we're still getting power from the grid.
So why don't we go to full capacity on the 275?
So as adds up, the 330, we could, again, run the numbers again, but there's certainly a limitation of the space, usable space of the buildings A and B. As Nick mentioned, we could still definitely do extra 15 kilowatts at the public safety building or any other village facility, but it wasn't considered as part of this project. We just focus on the yards facilities.
I guess that's my question. Why did we, and maybe Nick, you can address that. Why did we limit it to the yards? And if we could go up to 100%? Is it diminishing returns given the credits available, or is there some other limiting factor?
No, I think we're treating ourselves like we would treat any customer. State law, you have the right to self-generate, but not to over-generate. So we made a calculated decision to get to that 250 kilowatt AC number, which we felt like would get us close to the 100%. So when you add the 2 arrays, the 10 existing and the 250, you get somewhere around 95% of total reduction. So once the system's in place, over the course of the year, 95% of the electrons are going to be coming from the sun and not from IMEA. So that was part of the calculus. Could we squeeze a little? I mean, maybe. There's other considerations about the cost of the project and the roof deployment. There are other buildings, like I said, that can accommodate solar arrays, so that could be an opportunity to offset that consumption. But we didn't want to overshoot and get more than 100%, because then we're in violation of our own rules.
Okay, so then the concern is in June, when everything is fully firing, we would go over the limit, because you can't shut down some of the panels idea, right?
Right, and that likely is going to happen. We're looking at it for ourselves like we would look at any solar customer in the village. It's over the course of the year. So most customers are going to produce more than they consume during the summer when the sun is at its highest intensity, but you make up for it in the winter months when the sun is less intense, and we look at it over the course of the year. So we acknowledge that in the summer we're probably going to produce, the meter's going to be spinning backwards, for lack of a better term. But over the course of the year, we're at 93%, so we're practically at 100 at that point.
Well, an 8-year payback is pretty darn good, I think. And so I guess the question is there a way between now and year end to consider utilizing the other 15 kilowatts or what have you?
Yeah, certainly. I know that the public safety building is in the midst of a facility study, so based on how that shakes out, if the roof is replaced, we can consider doing a 15 there, or there's opportunities at the power plant for 15.
But you'd have to do that you'd have to get going before year end.
If you want to get the incentives, yes. That's the kicker, right. Right.
I just wanted to say,
Feasible to look at that by year end, before we even talk about it?
It would be a heavy lift. I wouldn't say it's impossible.
Okay.
We're under a tight deadline. As Elise and Sam mentioned, we have to spend around 7% of the project cost by year end and meet certain milestones in order to safe harbor this project. So we've already taken this up expeditiously to get to this point. I would have to really think about what steps would need to be taken to go back to the drawing board.
I would like to say that I'm more comfortable with the 95, 96%. I tend to be conservative, whatever it is that staff researched and decided was best. I like to be conservative, because if we even overshoot it for any amount of time, we've shot ourselves in the foot. And what if the summers are getting hotter and the Octobers are getting hotter and the Novembers are getting hotter, and this 93% in a year and a half is already 97%? If we've gone up to 100, we have no room for that.
Is that right, Nick? as throughout time?
Right, so generally speaking, the trend in the country and in the village is that consumption's trending downwards, right, as fixtures get more efficient. So there could be a decrease in load at the yards, which would obviously increase the percentage. So you could get close to that 100 just through other efficiencies. I think that's what you're trying to get at, right, is the load.
There are efficiencies in the hot sun and the hot summers that are getting longer and longer.
More months of higher.
Oh,
More
sure,
months
sure.
of heat, like, I mean.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So I'm comfortable with this number. I don't feel like in my opinion, it doesn't trouble me to not get to 100%. It's fine if everybody wants to look at it, but, you know.
all I was suggesting is maybe there's an opportunity elsewhere in the village to utilize the 15
Certainly.
kilowatts.
Yeah,
So,
we
you know,
have.
and maybe take advantage of, because the credits are not going to be here. I assume that these credits, we're pretty solid on these credits, that we're comfortable that the legislative landscape isn't going to pull the rug out from under us on this.
We can't promise.
I would give you a somewhat canned response is based on the information we have at this time. That's the best we can go off.
Very
of,
canned,
so,
very
yep.
canned. Okay, well, 8 years, I mean, you've heard, a lot of that. When we did the 10, I think it was like a 17-year payback or something like that.
Yeah, you're getting economies of scale here. You're spreading out.
Well, you're getting more credits.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is what you're getting. So it sounds like there's pretty good enthusiasm up here. Scott?
I do, I mean, I know that RPG is a small company, like under 50 employees. So, I guess I would be in favor of approving this contingent on a search of their financial stability to be able to sustain the service through their warranted commitment.
To the satisfaction of our finance department?
I think to this, either that or to the satisfaction of the village manager, I'm fine.
Okay,
either.
one of those. Okay, we can talk about that. Why don't we open this up for public comment? And I'd ask for any members of the public that would like to speak on this topic to come forward and give us your thoughts. Thanks for waiting through the meeting.
Thank you for allowing me to talk. Dave Carnes, I think most of you probably heard a little bit from me this afternoon in an email. Just sort of to clarify on the conversation that you were having about the additional 15 kilowatts. Actually, you have until the end of June in 2026 to start the project and show continuous construction, right? So something that size, if you started it before July 4th, right, when the big, beautiful bill was signed, then anything under a megawatt and a half can still qualify for the credits as they stand right now.
Okay, thank you for that.
And another thing that I noticed in the write-up there, the SREC credit bucket that this falls into is actually $64.05. That was one of the questions that somebody asked, can you sell them better in the open market? Illinois is under legislative dictate to generate their power for renewable energy. So this is actually one of the best SREC markets in the country.
I'm going to start your public comment now because you educated us. So we're starting the 3 minutes now.
Well, thank you. You know what? Like I said, I sent out the email earlier today, and I've had some interaction with Sam and Elise. What you're doing here is great. It is putting a best foot forward, right? Generating energy. I don't believe that this contract that is put before you to award is actually the best contract. Just from a cost perspective, and one of the things that Elise had said, right, doing it locally and with the community, and I realize that my public comment right here is a pitch that probably disqualifies my company, 93 Energy, and I understand that and am willing to do it because I'm emphatic about, right, doing it and doing it the right way. You're doing a really good thing. The contract, I believe, is overpriced, and also it is not a local organization. I'm here tonight as the owner of one of the companies that bid because I saw it this afternoon that it was going to be in your board meeting. I live a few miles away. I got in the car and I came up. All of my employees are local Union, right? Chicagoland area. So I really just wanted, right, you can tell I'm a little bit passionate about it. I wanted to get in front of you and say that. The 8-year payback is an extraordinary payback with these ITCs. I'm convinced even others on the bid list could get that payback reduced also. So thank you for your time, and you really are doing a great thing.
Thank you. We appreciate that, and thank you for bidding on this project. We do
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Yep.
Any questions to that public comment? Would you like any elaboration from staff on that or not?
Might be helpful to understand how staff selected.
Okay. Sam, would you like to do that, or Elise, or? Because we did receive the letter, and we appreciate that, so.
So I'll try to just make a couple comments. That 93 did submit a strong proposal. I think that what he just said about having more time till July of 2026 is true, that there are additional criteria that are going to be in place on where those panels can be sourced from. There's foreign entities of concern guidance that goes into effect starting in 2026. So while that's true, there is more time to try to claim the credits. There's additional criteria that has to be met that'll make it harder to do so or could increase the cost of the project and those panels. And then as far as the SREC value, we had this conversation with 93 Energy as well as some other, the other vendors. It's our understanding, the way that value is determined is based on the size, the kilowatts of the project. And so we're putting kilowatts on building A and B, that they would be looked at as a single project. They're at a single parcel, which puts them in the lower price band, is our understanding. That if they were looked at, if they were in 2 different locations on 2 different parcels for that size, they could potentially qualify for the higher $64, $65 price. But because they're co-located on a single parcel, it's over 200 megawatts, and that's why we are using the $53 per megawatt hour, or per megawatt price. So just to clarify a couple things that we evaluated. And part of the decision was also the strength of the warranty for RPG, that we thought that they offered some better warranty terms. Anything else?
I will have something to add. Part of the evaluation process, being this so time sensitive, we want to capture what was the strategy to ensure safe harbor in this project. What each vendor strategy, and the one that was more a solid answer was RPG say, we can ensure you can safe harbor your project with less than 8%, and when we ask how, we'll say, well, they break out the project cost to get some material that is ready available within 6 weeks. That will be beyond the 8%, and that percentage already spent in something that is tangible. That's something that gave us assurances that will be safe harbor in this project. Similar to RPG, we got similar, not so tangible. So for example, you have to pay or kind of issue a check for X amount of dollar and then transfer title. So it was kind of not really tangible how to get there, how they transfer to, how that in the process of applying for the incentive, how this is defined. So the answer that we were looking for to give us assurances, okay, we're gonna meet the minimum of 5% is this way. We're gonna buy the inverters, we're gonna buy the racking system, something that is really available before the end of the year.
Any,
What was the range of, is that Ryan? No. Oh, what was the range of bids that came in? And do we have a formal rubric? It sounds like you obviously looked at a lot of factors, but was there a formal rubric to evaluate?
Yeah, we have
this?
4 bids, ranging between 680,000 and 960,000.
Okay.
93 Energy was the lowest, and PSG was the highest. In between, we have Verde and RPG. When we submitted a following question, knowing that this presentation and staff recommendation, it was impossible to do it in the previous council meeting, we issued an email asking for how this will impact into make sure that we meet the safe harbor requirement. Verde was the only company that didn't respond, that showed us lack of responsiveness. All 3 others we continue evaluating all 3 and until we get to the point of the RPG.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for Sam? No? Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak to this issue? Okay, and Kim, the bid, the proposed on page 82 of the package, that's okay. But I assume those figures, are accurate here. It said the net cost of RPG was $316,606, and 93 Energy was $251,558, so less. But that's after all the incentives calculated and the assumptions that go behind that. And obviously, in the staff memo, you talked about the variety of factors that were considered. So it was not just a price issue. There were a number of issues that went into this calculation. So sometimes we just rely on staff and to do that work. Any thoughts? So we'll close public comment at this point, and we'll bring it back here for consideration. People feeling, I think this is an impressive project, and it dovetails on our conversations about energy supply and energy usage and sustainability and a lease. Thank you. This is a big project that you've been a part of, and so that'd be good to move this over the finish line if we can.
I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Okay, we're moving forward. Kim, Kirk? Yep.
Yes.
Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. Rob? And we can do it subject to.
Yeah,
And maybe,
I think,
Scott,
yeah,
you can do
that's
the
implied.
motion. So why don't may I have a motion to adopt resolution number R68-2025?
So moved.
And I'd like to,
Second.
Hang on one second. Scott?
and I would
comment?
like to amend the motion and make it contingent on a financial review of the stability of RPG to support the operation and maintenance commitments that they're making.
Okay, and Rob, would you like to further amend it?
Thank you. That I'd amended that there are no unforeseen big costs like insurance that if something happens catastrophic to these systems, that we have to, that we're not covered.
So what happens if those reports don't come back favorable?
I think we'd reconsider.
So then,
It would
I
be
mean,
subject to those.
right, but if it doesn't, are we going to miss our window here to hit our safe harbor?
This will take a couple days. I mean,
Yeah.
It shouldn't take long, and it's not going to be 3
I-
months.
Assuming
I
it's
would
a
be-
yes, that everything's clear, but if there are concerns and we're coming back here,
we'll address.
are we missing our window to hit our safe harbor?
We will not miss the window.
So at this point, we're already tight. So I understand that we need to go above and beyond and make sure that the financials are solid, the insurance level coverage. At the point, we just wait for your policy direction on how to move forward if you elect not to go with RPG.
Why don't we work on this motion, and the considerations have been brought up, the financial stability, the insurance, can be reviewed by Water and Electric, Finance Department, Village Manager, subject to their satisfaction, and maybe they can let me know on that. And then if it's not satisfactory, then we have a different issue on our hands. I suspect it'll be satisfactory, but we'll see. Scott?
If we're concerned about the timing, which I think we all are, would there be any benefit to putting this on the agenda for next Tuesday, just in case?
Well, let's see what comes back. We could do that
Okay.
if something
I
comes back.
just want to make sure we have time for
Yeah,
public
we
notice.
have time to do
Yeah.
that, but let's just see what comes back.
I
Do you
think-
agree? We'd be okay?
That would be a safe, and push it a week.
Fine with me.
Okay. Okay. So we have an amended motion here, and do we have a second on that amended motion?
I made the motion.
I second it. Can I second what I
You
amended?
can second the amended motion. That is a roll call vote. Whoop.
Just want to make sure, those issues that staff is going to look at, if staff believes there's an issue, they're going to bring it back to council. But council doesn't need to do anything after tonight if there are, according to staff, there are no issues.
Correct. There are no
Okay.
issues
Good.
moving forward.
So clarify.
And I'll update council in writing.
Yep.
And who will run the Dun and Bradstreet? Elrod Freeman?
We will.
Okay. Okay. I think we have a little game plan here. That's a roll call vote.
Trustee Dahlman? Yes. Trustee Apatoff?
Yes.
Trustee Myers?
Yes.
Trustee Orsick?
Yes.
Trustee Albinson?
Yes.
Trustee Handler?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for, again, coming tonight. We appreciate it. We move on. Item 10, old business, we have none, but we do have some new business. More power topic. Winnetka Power Generation long-term planning. Village staff is seeking policy direction regarding the replacement of turbine number 4 capacity and the future of continued steam turbine and boiler operation. Water and Electric Director Nick Nari is here to present. Nick, welcome. Thanks, Elise. All right, Nick, thank you.
All right, thank you, President Dearborn and Council. So yes, tonight I have the opportunity to present to you on Winnetka Power Generation long-term planning, which will include a presentation from Brad Schmidt with Stanley Associates regarding the generation study. So a lot of ground to cover tonight, so I'll go as quickly as I can. We'll talk about the history of generation within the village, our current fleet and redundancy. The question is, how much is enough, which you may be asking yourself. Another question you might be asking is, why do we need generation in the first place, which I'll try to cover. We'll talk about PJM market dynamics. As you recall, we are a PJM market participant, and that those market dynamics play into this decision that you're going to make tonight. Specifically the capacity auctions and possible load shedding, which is a nice word for blackouts. IMEA capacity payment structure, there have been changes that you've been made aware of that make this decision come to the forefront, worth discussing. Therefore, we'll talk about the steam generation financials. We'll receive a presentation from Mr. Schmidt with Stanley Consultants. And then we'll talk about renewables and sustainability, how it fits into the long-term plan. And lastly, I'll make some closing comments, and I'll give you our formal staff recommendations. I would ask, so I'm going to present, then Brad will present, then I'm going to come back up. So if you could just hold your questions till the end, I would appreciate it. Okay, so quick timeline of history of generation within the village. The water plant began its operations in 1893, and shortly thereafter in 1900, the electric plant began operations. So this is its 125th year of operation, 2025. And you can see over the years, we essentially added capacity as the village grew. So in 1900, we were feeding some streetlights in downtown Winnetka as residents, got electricity in their homes, and businesses and institutions received electricity. We grew and we grew and we grew. In 1978, we had 32 megawatts of combined capacity. In 1984, we became a founding member of IMEA. And then in 1994, we stopped running 24/7, 365. So up until that point, the plant ran every day of the year for 94 years. We became what's known as a peaker plant, which is we run when there's periods of high demand, high prices. We covered this during the IMA discussion. And in 2024, last year, at council direction, based on staff recommendation, number 4 turbine was retired. So our current capacity is now 22 megawatts, which is about half of our system peak. Our current fleet, again, consists of 22 megawatts. 17 megawatts of that is steam turbines driven by natural gas boilers. The average age of that equipment is 65 years. That equipment is scheduled for a life cycle analysis in the next fiscal year. So we'll get some recommendations from an expert on how to get that hopefully through 2035. Likewise, we have 5 megawatts of diesel engines, which is, RICE is the term for reciprocating internal combustion engine. It's just an engine. So you'll hear myself and Brad use the word RICE. That's what we mean when we talk about that. It's an engine. So we have 2.5 megawatt units from 1979. These are the primary emergency backup for the water system. And again, we have a life cycle analysis scheduled for 2026. So the current fleet and redundancy, the goal of this slide is to answer the question, how much? How much do we need? You'll see this colorful chart here. This is a stacked bar chart of the system peak loads. This is the absolute worst case scenario over the last 5 years. So as a utility, we need to plan for the worst case, the hottest days of the year when we're using the most electricity. You can kind of see as you work way up the chart, the green area is 15 megawatts or less. The light yellow is between 15 and 20. The dark yellow is 20 to 25. Then you go work your way up. So the hottest day of the year would be at the top of this chart, close to 40 megawatts. To answer the question, how much do we need? That's a little subjective. The goal of this table would be to kind of hopefully make that decision, help you make that decision. So with 20 megawatts of generation capacity, we could support the system for 213 days out of the year, so about 58% of the year. So right now, with 22 megawatts, we're probably close to 60% of the year. We could support the system if there were an emergency that required us to only rely on the power plant. Obviously, as you work your way up further down the chart, more capacity equals more coverage, so less risk. So when we had 32 megawatts of capacity, we could cover the system load about 95% of the year. This diagram here on the right is a depiction of what's known, we call it the four-legged stool, for those of you that have been around long enough to hear that analogy. Essentially, we are in the middle here, Village of Winnetka, 40 megawatt peak, and we have now 4 legs of the stool that is our system, our capacity. We have 2 138 kV lines that attach to the transmission system. We have 21 megawatts of 12 kV connections from ComEd, from their Northbrook substation, and of course, we currently have the plant. So the goal here is to understand if this is to remain a 4-legged stool, to what extent this piece of the pie is going to help us maintain system reliability. Another question you may be asking is, why do we need generation? So with all of our sources that I just discussed, we have 150% reserve margin, so we have almost 3 times the amount of capacity that we need. That's a good problem to have. That's a testament to prior village staff and village councils managing the risk very well. We have 60 MVA of transformation. We still have our ComEd tie lines. We haven't given those up at 12 kV. Obviously, we still have the plant. So again, this is a good problem to have. This lowers the risk for the village and increases our optionality if there were to be a major event. From 1893 to 1972, we did have a water tower. It was on Tower Court, just above the power plant. It was demolished in 1972, and that means from that point forward, our water system is fully pumped for pressure. What that means is that when there's no power, there's no water. So when the power's out, there's no water for drinking and there's no water for firefighting. So pretty important life safety measure there. You can think of our local generation as an insurance policy. This is a policy you're taking out in the event that something catastrophic were to happen outside of our control, outside of the village. The absolute worst case scenario would be a tornado or a storm or a train derailment, really anything that could possibly affect the 138 kV lines. These are those big towers that run along the Edens. That's what we're connected to. So everything besides the power plant relies on those power lines. So if something were to happen to them, we would need something locally to support the system. If there were an emergent event on the transmission system, the downtime would be significant. You're talking probably measured in weeks to get that restored. Winnetka, if it had local generation, could have power restored faster than any of our neighboring North Shore communities, so it's a major benefit. What would generation support? Obviously, it would support the water system. It would support vital village services. The public safety building and the village yards, which we just discussed, are both connected to the power plant directly, so they could be supported. It could support cellular and landline communication within the village, stormwater lift stations, which are, again, tied to the plant to mitigate flooding. And if this storm or major event were to happen during a hot summer day, we would need to commission cooling centers for the public, and we could power large institutions to help with that in the event that residents do not have air conditioning. So PJM market dynamics, I will fly through this because you all should be PJM experts after the IMEA discussion. But essentially what has changed since you last saw me was that we have the auction results for 26-27, and the results are not good. Essentially, the price hit the cap that was done by a settlement between PJM and the state of Pennsylvania. It's about $330. 2 years ago it was $28. If not for that settlement, the cap probably would have hit $389, so even higher. All signs are pointing to the next auction, which is going to occur in December, hitting that cap. So these bars that you see in this bar chart, there is no sign of those bars declining. They are going to stay elevated in the near term. What that means, or as a part of that, with increasing demand and decreasing supply, we obviously have rising prices from a macroeconomic standpoint. What has also happened as a result is that PJM's reserve margins are down. So PJM typically tries to clear 20%. So if the system needs 100 megawatts, they have 120, right? They want to have contingency in the event that something happens. They have backup. For 26-27, that reserve margin is down to 0.1%, so less than 0.5% reserve margin. What that means for the stability of the grid is there is no margin for error. If you were to have a power plant trip out or a transmission interruption, this little scale here is to show you what PJM or MISO or any grid operator in the country is trying to do. They're constantly managing supply and demand. So supply is power plants, demand is energy consumed by customers. They have to constantly manage this every hour of every day of the year to maintain reliability. So with a very low reserve margin, what happens is if a power plant trips offline, you almost need to immediately shed load, which is a blackout at that point. So this is all to say that the national grid, without significant structural changes, is projected to get more expensive and less reliable in the near term. So what does load shedding look like from a practical perspective for the village of Winnetka? So this is what the warning system would look like from PJM through IMEA. So PJM communicates to IMEA, IMEA communicates to us. You could think of this as analogous to a weather alert. So alert is severe thunderstorms, and step 10 is a tornado watch, right? So there's varying severity in between. Starts with, you may want to, be concerned to get in your basement. So there's varying steps along the way, and these steps can occur at any moment in any order. So the scenario I mentioned where a power plant trips offline, you're probably jumping straight to step 8, 9, or 10, because that's a major event. What this looked like in practice this calendar year, the first set of steps, which is less severe, was triggered 11 times this summer by PJM through IMEA, and each time we did run the power plant and were able to meet those commitments. Essentially what PJM is going to say is, be prepared to start your generators. We think the grid is going to get stressed, and we want your help to relieve stress on the grid. Kind of those intermediate steps are, hey, even with your generators running, the grid is still under stress. Can you please ask your customers to turn down their air conditioning, turn off their lights, take conservation steps to alleviate stress on the grid? If those are not effective and the grid continues to be stressed, PJM is going to start to issue directives to start to shed load, which is a blackout. So when you get down to steps 9 and 10, these are the most severe of the steps. If we were to go straight to that, PJM through IMEA is going to tell us you need to be able to start rolling blackouts in 5 minutes. That's true for any PJM participant. The point of having local generation would be to help offset the risk here of having to do firm load shed. And just a reminder, Winnetka is a ComEd customer technically through Northbrook, so we could potentially be subjected to a load shed out of our control. The example that happened most recently, which we've discussed previously, is the Memorial Day event in New Orleans. So in MISO territory, which covers New Orleans, there was a nuclear power plant that tripped offline, took 800 megawatts of load, so 20 times the size of our plant, tripped offline. What had to happen almost immediately was a blackout. So the 600 megawatts equated to about 102,000 customers in the greater New Orleans area that immediately lost power in order to maintain grid stability. So this is not something that we're just operators are dreaming up. This is something that's already happening. So just to touch again briefly on the capacity payment structure, you may recall in May of 2025, IMEA made the capacity payments more generous going forward. So between now and 2034, those payments are scheduled to escalate every year between now and then. The payments cannot be reduced. Contractually, they cannot be reduced, but they can be increased by board action. So WNECA, as a generating member of IMEA, could, like any other member, come to the board and ask for increased compensation. The board, the staff would have to determine the net effect to the agency for that at a later date. But right now, based on the information we have, we've run the numbers, and between now and 2035, we can expect just over $2 million in additional compensation for steam and just under $500,000 for non-steam, which is those diesel engines. Just a reminder, the purpose of the capacity payments is to compensate the village monthly for its reserve capacity. So we receive these payments as a credit on our monthly bill from IMEA, comes right off the bill. It helps the agency meet their capacity requirements as PJM participants. It reduces the agency's demand during PJM peak events, which results in savings that are then socialized throughout the agency. And it substantially covers the village's operating cost for generation. And just as a reminder, the power plant, like our utilities, operate on a not-for-profit basis. So what this all boils down to was we felt that it was prudent, based on market dynamics as well as the increased compensation from IMEA, to re-examine the analysis that we brought to you in February of 2024, which was revolving around steam generation. So the scenario that was settled on back in 2024 was scenario 3, which was to contemplate shutting down steam in 2027, which is the leftmost column you see here. We then took a look at 2 alternate scenarios, which would be to either continue running turbine 6 and 7 or just turbine 7 through 2035. What you see here is the effect of capacity payments flowing through the budget and how they're affected by offsets and generator penalties or added O&M. And what you arrive at is the best case scenario is scenario 2, which is to keep number 6 and number 7 running through 2035. The major distinction there is that the capital investment required for number 6 and 7 is very similar to just number 7 because they share a lot of the same infrastructure inside the plant. So there's a lot of fixed costs that have to be spread over as much capacity as possible. So if you take a lower capacity, you have less kilowatts to spread your cost over. So you get higher cost recovery keeping both turbines in service. And also in that scenario, you take no generator penalties. So the scenario we discussed where we would shut down steam in 27, where we would start off with about $11 million in credits, 10 of that would disappear in penalties, and we'd be left with $1 million net credits in 2035. Versus scenario 2 is the most generous, about $3.3 million in the black in terms of compensation, and then scenario 2 has lower cost recovery and results in less money in 2035. It's also worth mentioning that this table and this analysis kind of proved out why the increased capacity payments are important. So if we look at the last 2 rows of this table, the second to last row is the net capacity credits with the increased compensation, which are all values that are in the black. The old compensation, so if IMEA had not adjusted the capacity, only one of the 3 scenarios would have been in the black, and not by that much. It would have been almost break even. So there's real value in what IMEA did as an agency to compensate members for capacity, and this kind of demonstrates that. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Brad Schmidt. He's with Stanley Consultants, and he's going to present to you the findings of the generation study.
Thank you, Nick. My name is Brad Schmidt. I'm with Stanley Consultants. I was the project manager for the generation study. I want to thank the village, as well as along with Nick and Sam, for including Stanley and selecting us to perform the generation study for the village. I'm going to provide a brief overview of our scope and goals and turn the presentation back over to Nick. The goal of the generation study was really to evaluate 7 options for that fourth stool, that fourth leg of the stool that Nick was talking about. There's 7 predetermined options. Those options were predetermined by the village. They included quick start generation and fast start generation. The reason the quick start generation is important is because it does back up the water plant. It only takes 2 to 5 minutes to actually get the generator online. Quick start generation ranges from 2.5 to 15 megawatts. And it's also dispatchable as an asset for IMEA. The fast start generation, however, takes up to 30 minutes to start and ranges from 10 megawatts to 15 megawatts. Keep in mind that the local generation does provide a hedge against a system-wide outage, as Nick mentioned, and the fast start generation is dispatchable within IMEA. Another aspect that we studied was the viability of solar, and we looked at solar at a 5 megawatt level, up to 5 megawatt level, I should say, at the Village Public Works facility. This is the table that clearly identifies each of the 7 options. The options range from 10 to 30 megawatts total capacity. There were many quick start options both at the plant and at the yards that were examined, and then some fast start options at the yards. Our approach took a very methodological approach. We started with the screening analysis. The screening analysis really is to narrow down the commercially available power generation resources. We then went to an air permitting assessment. The air permitting assessment is important because it explores the requirements and regulations that are applicable to the village with respect to emissions. Next, we folded in a technical analysis where we looked in depth at each option, each of the 7 options. Then we went and performed an economic analysis when we better understood the scope of each of those options. And then we implemented an implementation plan based on 2 of the options selected by Nick and his team. So the screening analysis for the thermal generators available in the market included reciprocating internal combustion engines. Those are the RICE engines that were mentioned. We also looked at aeroderivative combustion turbines and industrial combustion turbines. These are the thermal generators that are available in the market that meet the requirements of the study and the goals of the generation. A couple Caterpillar units, 1 diesel, 1 natural gas, and 3 Siemens units, an aeroderivative and 2 industrial, and then 1 Solar Titan 130, which is also an industrial steam turbine or combustion turbine. Regarding the screening analysis of the renewable resources, we looked at 9 different options and qualified them based on a qualitative analysis. Please note that most of the renewable options really have a low deployment viability due to the notes here in the table, but solar actually has a moderate deployment viability. It has co-located generation assets that feed baseload. The graphic here on the right side of your slide shows the landfill applied PV array that we studied, and that was up to 3 megawatts DC. Okay, moving on to the air permitting assessment, which was the next step in the process. Our environmental members determined the applicable rules as well as the emission limits that were applicable to the village. Then they calculated the baseline actual emissions. The reason that's important is because at the plant, we can take credit for the existing emissions from the existing generation sources. Then we determined, based on the identified generators, the potential to emit values for each of the 7 options. And then we were able to make some conclusions based on the 7 plant options. The conclusions for the plant, these are for the options focused on the plant, were 1B, 2, and 3 would be permitted as minor modifications for PSD. Options 1, 1A, and 5 would be permitted as minor modifications. However, there would be required reduced operating hours if the village decided to move forward with those options. At the yards, all of the options at the yards would be permitted as minor sources for PSD and NSR, as well as Title V. This is important because that was one of the focuses of the study, to remain a minor modification for PSD.
Can I just can you just, ESD and NS, are those state requirements? Are those federal requirements?
They are state and federal requirements, yes. Okay, moving on to the technical analysis. So after we did the air permitting assessment, we took an in-depth view of each of the technical options. We looked at what the requirements were for the village, including performance, heat rate, emissions, the fuel gas, what it would take to connect the generator to the electric grid, any space requirements as well as noise requirements. And then we also looked at constraints such as fuel supply, electrical infrastructure, as well as physical space and stack height. After we understood better what the scope of each of the options would have to be, we conducted an economic evaluation. This evaluation was a Class 4 cost estimate, which included querying vendors for major equipment quotations, as well as using parametric estimates to develop a capital cost estimate for each of the options. The cost estimate was plugged into the PJM capacity and production credit calculator, and using very general assumptions, we calculated the straight line payback for the period of 2028 to 2055. The conclusion of the economics analysis would be that the project would really need to be justified for non-financial reasoning, given that for the evaluated period of 2025, no payback was realized. The village decided to look at option 4 and option 5 for implementation plan. We looked at a schedule with major milestones, including a pre-engineering phase, major equipment procurement phase, detailed design, demolition and construction, and then startup and commissioning. We expect that duration for both of the options selected to be approximately 36 months. And back to Nick.
All right, thank you, Brad. So I just have 2 more slides, and then we'll wrap up with the staff recommendation. So just as it relates to renewables and sustainability, as Brad mentioned, Stanley did look at 9 carbon neutral options. The only one with the above a low level of feasibility would be solar on the landfill. Stanley's estimates would be that it could accommodate about a 2.5 megawatt array AC. This would most likely occur in conjunction with the stormwater project completion, because there's going to be additional dirt piled on the landfill up until the point where they're done. At that point, we can consider installing those solar panels. Stanley's estimated cost in 2025 dollars was about $5.5 million. This equates to about $2,178 a kilowatt, which is on par with some of the thermal options with the lower capacity, so very similar cost. That array, by Stanley's estimate, could produce about 3.8 million kilowatt hours. This would be 3% of the entire village load. So if you think of the village's load as a pie, this would be 3% of that pie would come from this array on an annual basis. The village does have options to address your question, Trustee Albinson, from earlier. There's different ways you could approach this. You could consider counting this towards your MDR. So as a reminder, our MDR currently is 10% of our peak, which would be about 4 megawatts. This would be just over half of our MDR as a local generation. Or you could consider retaining that MDR to use in a more strategic fashion, and you could actually allow IMEA to host a solar array on our land. So they already do this in 8 other member municipalities. You have a defined lease with IMEA. You provide them the land. They come in, they pay for, own, and install the array on village land, and then those benefits are then socialized throughout the membership. So there's two different ways to do it that we would need to consider when we get to this point. Just some further context, it's no secret to all of you that the village has very limited vacant land available that's owned by the village. So we should be strategic in how we leverage that vacant land versus how we allocate our MDR. You could consider MDR as a PPA, which is a purchase power agreement, something that other member municipalities are considering, entering into a PPA for a nuclear plant or a renewable resource. So that MDR currently as it exists is 10%. That has real value. And staff feels like the village should be strategic in how it leverages that 10%. Just as a note, Brad did not discuss and the study did not contemplate battery energy storage systems, and this is because IMEA is already doing a study on behalf of all the members, so we didn't want to duplicate those efforts. IMEA's been running that study all year long. We anticipate those results to be ready by the end of this year. So when I have those results from IMEA, I would present them to council. So overall, the staff recommendation at this time as it relates to landfill solar would be to wait closer to the end of the stormwater project and then leverage our MDR provision with IMEA in the most strategic way possible. So when we get closer to that date, we can have a further discussion on what the best path forward is. So long-term generation planning, this is kind of where it comes all together here. So as we mentioned, the village has until 2029 to replace the capacity of number 4 turbine, which is about 9 megawatts. 5 of the 7 options that Brad discussed would cover that capacity. Staff's recommendation, if you recall my fancy colored bar chart, would be to get to 20 to 25 megawatts. So at 20 to 25 megawatts, we're covering the system peak somewhere between 50 and 60% of the course of the year. Obviously, if you elect to go back to 30 or 35, you're covering more of the system through more of the year, but it comes at a higher cost. So we feel like 20 to 25 is a good spot to land at. How that would look in practical purposes would be to pursue some of these options. This is a summary of the options that Stanley analyzed, their names, their costs, in $1 million, the cost per kilowatt, how many megawatts it's actually adding net. So if it requires taking a generator out of service, you have to net that out. So the second to last row is the net impact. So option 1B is adding 10. The other ones add a little less because you have to remove something to put it in its place. The reason we chose option 1B as the possible option to pursue at this point would be that it has one of the lowest costs. It adds 10 megawatts, and it doesn't require us to modify any of the existing infrastructure. So nothing inside the plant, nothing that exists at the yards has to be modified from a generation perspective to accommodate that. So right out of the gate, we get 10 megawatts by 2029, and between 2029 and 2035, our total capacity would be back up to 32 megawatts. Assuming you accept our recommendation to continue steam, we would have 32 megawatts between now and 2035, which would be a substantial hedge for the village. So overall, the recommended approach would be, mostly due to cost and logistics, would be to take this in 2 phases. We recommend pursuing option 1B by 2029 to replace turbine 4. That Stanley's class 4 estimate would be a $27 million expense. And then phase 2 would be to pursue option 5 in 2035 dollars, that would be $36 million to coincide when steam is retiring. So take a little bit of a bite now to replace turbine 4, and then plan for the eventual retirement of steam, and then take another bigger bite later on to replace that capacity. Again, with that phase 1 and phase 2 approach, the end goal would be to get back to 20 megawatts, which we feel is a comfortable number. So overall, in conclusion, there is a strong tradition of power generation in the village. As I mentioned, the plant has been in service for 125 years. That long equipment life of the existing infrastructure is due to continued investment, at the policy direction of past and current village councils, and the everyday efforts of village staff down at the plant to make sure that the equipment is in good working order. Generation has a net positive financial impact on the electric fund via capacity credits through IMEA. It will provide redundancy in an increasingly unstable market. It'll guarantee the reliability of our local supply, which is things inside the village limits, for the next 50 years. Therefore, the staff recommendation and the policy direction which we're seeking from you would be 3 items. The first of which would be to consider our recommendation to continue steam generation through 2035 based on the positive financial impact to the fund. And then recommendations 2 and 3 are somewhat the same, but bifurcated, to take a multi-phased approach to restore 20 to 25 megawatts of generation between 2029 and 2035. That is my last slide, so at this point,
Okay.
I'll open it up.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
We're becoming experts on power supply, all right?
Yes.
Why don't we start with some questions for Nick or Mr. Schmidt about the study, about the recommendation, before we open this up for public comment.
Can you start right at the top and go through this again?
Yeah.
Maybe
I have it memorized, yeah.
That's not a good question. Other questions, Kim Handler? Formulating.
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll jump right in. I really appreciate the presentation because reading the materials, like I've read it over and over, so I really appreciate how you distilled, you didn't just repeat what was in the written materials. All of this is based on the assumption that we have constant capacity credits right now, or generation credits.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to predict kind of where we're going to be, where phase 2 could, under your recommendation, phase 2 comes in 2035, is that right?
Correct, yep.
It could be a very different landscape, right? We could be having data centers sucking up, power left and right. Would this give us the flexibility to change course and maybe look at option 2, 3, or 4 if we think that we actually do need, it would be financially beneficial to become a bigger generator? I mean, just
Yeah.
cutting to the chase,
Yep.
it seems like it's hard to make these projections right now.
I think that was the rationale for the phased approach, would be to get us to replace the capacity of number 4 turbine as the first step. And then that gives us some time between now and, there was a timeline in the agenda packet which showed kind of phase 1, phase 2. So we would start phase 2 in 2030. We would propose to do another generation study because a lot of things are going to change between now and 2030. So we would do this entire process again, renew our assumptions, the costs are going to be different, the benefits are going to be different, do another study and come back to you and say, okay, maybe it's not option 2, 3, or 4, it's something else, and it's bigger. So overall, this is something that we discussed with Stanley is there's going to be value for capacity in the market, no matter what. As long as data centers are kind of gobbling up generators and resources, the capacity is going to have value. IMEA, there's no reason not to believe IMEA is not going to compensate us for that value. Because it benefits the agency, not just the village. So IMEA is going to need to, with their 1 gigawatt, 1,000 megawatts of load, they have to, by law, cover a certain amount of that with capacity. So anything we install is not just for our benefit, but it benefits the whole membership. So I have every reason to believe that it's going to continue to have value beyond 2035.
Well, I mean, it's pretty dramatic, right? In a year, we were at the position of decommissioning turbine 4.
Correct.
And now we're saying, hey, because of the capacity credit change in the market, it actually makes financial sense for us not to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, I wasn't the board member at that time, but hearing from Brian,
Yeah.
the look at the capacity payment structure was a direct result of the auctions. So the PJM auction, the MISO auctions, there were kind of signs that this is where the market was heading. And so Winnetka and other members broached the topic, can we take a second look at capacity payments, and the adjustment was made. So that was a direct result of that.
Okay, and so as part of this very detailed analysis, the economic analysis was assuming the current capacity credit payment scheme, even though on a yearly basis, IMEA can increase that amount?
So it would take, so it's already, there's already a schedule between
Yeah.
now and 35. It's going to escalate till it caps out in 2034. So
Okay.
we already know what the credits are going to be for the
And
next
we
9 years.
included that in the economic
Right.
assumptions?
That's how
Okay.
we arrived at the 2.5 million, is because we
Okay.
already know what they're going to be based on the current policy. It's a board decision. So if the PJM auction in December comes back high and the auction in June of next year is high, the membership as a whole
Could reconsider
could
that.
reconsider. We say, hey, and MISO is also heading in a similar path. There was over a 600% increase in MISO capacity. So this is a nationwide issue that the board members could consider.
But we've already, we've baked in the
Mhm.
known escalations.
Yep. The
Okay.
analysis was based on what we know our compensation is going to be until 2034, which is as far as they can even project prices. So no one is going to do more than a 10-year look ahead at prices in the market.
And then this discussion about the gas pipeline for the other options.
Yep.
Which I know is a huge project.
Yep.
But how feasible is that technologically? I mean, logistically, what are the limitations on that? And I know the air
Right.
permitting is potentially better, but maybe not. So can you just kind of give a quick overview
Right, so
of that?
I'll answer your second question first. So the air permitting, the good news from what Stanley produces, that they're all minor modifications, which is a term that
Right.
when we go back to the IEPA or federal EPA, it's a minor modification on our permit versus a major, which is a much different process. So that was good news.
Yeah.
As it relates to installing a gas pipeline to the yards, it's more, I would say, cost prohibitive than permit prohibitive, because it would be installed within the village's right-of-way, and it's to benefit us as a village. So I don't see why we would make life difficult for North Shore Gas to extend that pipeline in our right-of-way to feed the village. And I don't think there's any permitting implications that I'm aware of in terms of the EPA that would be affected by that. It would be like if, say Medline was expanding and needed a gas pipeline, they would pay to run a new gas pipeline down Willow to their campus. It'd be similar to that.
Okay, so where's the trunk right now then?
So ironically, the trunk right now stops at Willow, which is a topic of future discussion for major infrastructure improvements.
Mhm.
So it would have to come down Willow from Birch to the yards.
Okay.
So it also comes at significant expense. If you look at the costs I have up here, the cost of that pipeline extension is somewhere between $4 to $6 million. So it's a significant investment.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Trustee Myers.
Nick, thanks for all the detail. A couple questions. So we're planning basically for about 20 megawatts of capacity. Is that right?
The staff recommendation is to get to a minimum of 20 megawatts.
Minimum of 20
Yep.
megawatts. So on half the days of the year, we'd be able to cover all of our needs if we were isolated. I guess I have a two-part question. One is, does IMEA, in a sense, control how that power is distributed? So in an emergency situation,
Mhm.
could they say, well, Winnetka, yes, you're generating 20, but you only get 5 of that, and the other 15 has to get put out onto the network?
No, so it actually, the power always stays within the village. So
Okay.
similar to I'd say it's analogous to the solar production, the power has to stay within the village.
Okay.
So even now, when we generate, we're not supposed to push out onto ComEd's system because
Yeah.
it could cause issues with their
Okay.
coordination. It could be a safety concern. So no, the power always stays within the village.
Okay.
In the scenario where if there was a catastrophic failure and we would effectively be an island,
Yeah.
we would open up our connections to ComEd and we would be an island at that point.
Yeah,
So the
okay.
power would stay in the village.
Okay. In terms of the timing to have this done by 2029, right? I think it's 36 months.
Mhm.
what's the situation with supply for some of this generation capacity? Are we confident that 3 years is enough, that this can be back online by 2029?
Right, so we contemplated this with Stanley as well. The units that we're targeting are small enough that there's not, at this time, significant supply chain issues. What you're seeing is the larger units, so 40 to 60 megawatts, those are the ones that are being gobbled up by data centers. So because data centers are having difficulty, they have to wait in the interconnection queue, just like any other customer. They're actually co-locating generations, so they're buying engines, turbines, and they're putting it on property to power their data centers. So we're not competing in the same space because we're getting a smaller unit, so I'd say there's less of a risk. There's also, part of that 36 months is not just procurement, but permitting. So the last time we went for our air permit, it was a 24-month process. So depending on council direction to move forward, we would engage very quickly with the permitting process for the EPA.
And was that 24 months for a major modification or just for minor?
That was just to renew our permit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we would anticipate every bit of 24 months, and that's baked into the schedule.
Okay. Okay.
Other questions? All right. Nick, I just want to understand that. So the recommendation from Stanley is, or the analysis is that none of this makes financial sense, correct?
Correct.
Okay. The reason to do this is just to provide insurance, backup, safety for the village power supply. And that's how we do it, right?
The best analogy I can make is, yes, this is effectively an insurance policy.
Okay. To the tune of $12 million.
Correct.
Okay. And generating steam, what we're, steam power down there is still, that's a positive. So your first recommendation, maintain steam generation.
Yep.
That's kind of a no-brainer, sounds to me, with the capacity credits and.
Correct.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
The other two are really significant capital investments.
I can go back to the previous cost.
Have we put this down in terms of how we're going to pay for this, or what?
So the goal tonight would be to agree on this phased approach, and then as part of the budget exercise, we would bring forward how we estimate to pay for those costs.
So this is kind of aspirational a little bit. Yeah, we'd like to have the backup redundancy and all this, but it may be that we don't have $12 million, $13 million to do 1B, because that's what it would cost. It's a loss of $13 million.
Right.
Am I understanding this right?
We plan to bring forward to the council a recommendation on how to fund the replacement as part of the budget exercise.
Okay. I mean, there are only so many ways to fund it. I mean,
Correct.
Higher electric rates, you borrow money, whatever it is.
Yep.
Okay. Just so I understand it. I mean.
Yep.
And Stanley, that was the analysis. You probably knew that going into this, that it was not going to be economically feasible. Just pure economics.
Correct. And I would I don't know if I'd say put you at ease, but the equipment that is down at the plant now is average age is 75 years. It's well beyond its useful life, and it's still providing value. So we have every reason to believe that, yes, this is a large expense. It's a big number to invest now, but this equipment should last a significant, beyond its depreciation. It'll continue to provide value for the village. So yes, the payback is significant in terms of years, but it's going to last a significant amount of time. We have information from Siemens that there are aeroderivative turbines, which is essentially an airplane engine, that have been in service for almost 100 years.
Is there a payback period on this? That's what I don't understand.
Right. So in the agenda packet, the executive summary, there was a calculation. The options were ranging between 40 to 50 years straight line payback.
Okay.
That's all.
And if we didn't do this, does that mean, just was the wrong word, we basically move to this phase this part of the chart more quickly when power is an issue? Is that
correct? If we have no local standby generation and PJM issues an alert, we would be dropping load. We'd be doing rolling blackouts.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, I guess one other question is, we've got these steam generators, which are old in and of themselves.
Correct.
Does this become an insurance policy against those potentially failing at some point?
It is, right. So the goal would be to have the 10 megawatts in place by 2029
Yeah.
in order to, if something were to happen between 2030 and 2035, it would be an insurance policy against that.
So, I mean, the way I looked at it is, on a straight financial payback, it doesn't make sense. But you have to factor in what's the risk and the cost associated of either a massive failure outside of Winnetka or a failure of our own facilities, and then IMEA diminishing what our payment, what our capacity payment is, and so.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the hard decision, what you just talked about, which is what type of risk
Yeah.
and insurance do you want?
I
It's
think
like-
that's what we're going to.
Tangible of how much does the community value
Right.
this
And-
liability?
Right. I mean, there's certain things we like to control our own destiny, but to what cost?
Yeah. Well, why don't we open this for public comment? Would anyone in the
Sure.
public like to come up and make a comment? Any thoughts on this? Come on, Commissioner Kodo, come on to the,
Come on, become an electrical expert like the rest of us.
you're a real public commenter here.
I'm a Park District Commissioner, so it's a little outside my wheelhouse, but say you flipped this equation and said, you have these auction results, you have an auction result. What is the break even of that auction result that justifies this investment? Yeah, the auction result for.
Christina, can you
cost of
speak
power.
into the
Sure,
microphone?
sorry.
Thank you.
The auction result for the cost of power that escalated very dramatically, that is anticipated to escalate further because of large demand in the general consumer landscape. Okay.
So this is to kind of to refresh some of the history lessons from the IMEA discussion. So the way IMEA member generators are compensated is not exactly market rates. It's less than market rates because IMEA has to balance the fact that not all the members generate. Just over half do, but half don't. So the agency as a whole has to determine how to compensate us, which comes at a cost to the other members, fairly, or that they're not harmed. So it's a balancing act. I don't know that we would ever get truly market rates because that market rate that we're getting compensated is going to come at a cost to a smaller town that doesn't have generation. So IMEA does that math and determines what is a fair compensation that benefits all the members, not just one individual member. If that makes sense.
If I,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I would say that the market dynamics go into the compensation calculations, and that was the impetus for raising it between now and 2034, absolutely. And it's definitely something that the board could take action on at a later date. If in a few years, the generating members feel that additional compensation is warranted, then that's something that those members could bring forward. Yep.
It'd have to be pretty big.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and again, not to rehash the IMEA discussion, but if we were on our own, not in a joint action agency, we could get a higher compensation for our generation, but it would become with more risk because we have to spread the risk amongst just ourselves versus 32 members. So it is a balancing act.
Okay.
The other factor here is if IMEA all of a sudden had a member that didn't sign back up after 2035, and they were able to sell that power out on a market with a higher price, there would be more compensation back to the existing members
Right, in the form of,
Either
credits or
lower
bill
cost or
reductions, right.
compensation for
mhm.
capacity.
Yep, yeah, lower
Which is
power
obviously not
costs.
factored
You know, Bob, on the
in.
face, I look at this and say, the numbers, it's hard to justify a little bit, but if I thought there was a consistent future of energy where there wouldn't be these interruptions and this, and the AI and the getting gobbling up energy, the future of energy is so cloudy right now that that's my concern about controlling our, possibly the reason why we might make this investment.
Well, option 1B and option 5, if I read it correctly, it's about $26 million net financial loss. Am I reading that right?
Can you remind, how did you arrive at that
I
number?
arrived at that from this table on page 153. Option 1B, profit loss, 12,000,009. Option 5 is phase 2, right?
Yeah.
Option 5. That's a negative 14.3.
Oh, I see.
I mean, if I'm reading that right. And to Trustee Aptow's point, it may be justified. So, Nick, there may be consensus here to say that steam generation makes sense. I mean, I think that makes sense. What's the path for future discussions on phase 1 and 2? With the budgeting and capital
Sure.
investments, so we understand this a little. I mean, this is not the October budget, I assume?
So,
It is this budget?
we would be presenting to you on October 30th, a cost breakdown for option 1B, and that would include permitting costs that would start as soon as next year. So based on the 36-month timeline that Brad laid out, we need to start permitting and design in January of 2026. So there will be money spent on this project next year no matter what. Depending on the scale, that would change the overall cost of the project, but no matter what, we need to start next year with permitting and design. So the goal would be to have a decision on the option so that we know exactly what to design and permit starting in 2026.
My guess is, and I can't speak for these good people up here, but my guess is there's not going to be any denial of pursuing this
Right.
further, but there's some decisions to make in terms of the non-financial aspect of this.
It's only non-financial for 50 years, right? After 50 years, it pays off, because like all infrastructure, right? It has to be renewed.
Correct. So I don't know how people feel about this, but I think we accept staff recommendation and
I'm in favor.
go to the next step.
I'll be anxious to see what we see in October.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So,
October.
Okay.
Do you mind, just on the financial payback, I mean, we install roads, and are we looking for a financial payback on a road? Not necessarily, right? It's just a cost of existing within our community. I mean, I look at, yes, it's an insurance policy, so to speak, but it is a necessary utility.
this is all wrapped up in, I mean, we've had electric conversation now for 6 months. I mean, well, for more than that. It's all wrapped up into the same, do we have redundancy? Do we have security in our system? Are we comfortable that we're going to be able to operate when other communities are browning out? I mean, this is part of that conversation. And, I think we would all like to have that, but we have to see the numbers.
At what cost?
Yeah.
And what's the likelihood of risk?
Yeah.
And just a comment or a thought, and Bob, I'm now zeroing in on how you're looking at the numbers on page 153 in the agenda, just looking at the profit loss. So just adding up the loss for the two recommended options.
Yeah.
That's over what amount of time?
That was, let me pull up the
It
agenda
says
packet.
2038 through 2055.
Correct. Yep.
And
That
that's
was the
sort of,
period.
in today's dollars, sort of
Correct.
what you're saying. It says 2055, the max. What does that mean? The maximum year or maximum cost?
Let me pull it up here.
Or the maximum credits?
Those are the maximum credits.
I don't, you don't have to get in the weeds. I guess the thought is this is over an extended period of time, and all we're doing is looking at, in today's dollars is we're going to write a check.
Right.
This is going to be,
Right. With the
obviously, we're going to
information-
incur these costs over a period of time. We'll get whatever sort of return, so to speak, over a lengthy period of time. There's going to be other financial structures on if we would bond this, if we're paying out of just our general. So there's so many other factors. I mean, I think it's a little theoretical almost to try to just distill it down into an additional cost in today's dollars.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a big bond issuance. I mean, there might be other ways to look at this. We don't know what the next 12-month cost is going to be, the permitting. You're going to provide those numbers to us, and that might be acceptable. And, you know, but I think more to come on this is what we're hearing.
Can never get too much electricity.
What's that?
We just cannot get too much electrical conversations here.
Correct. I think we've had it.
Glad to hear that.
You want policy direction. Does everyone agree? Does everyone feel that steam generation through 2020,
Yes.
2035 is a good policy? Yes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that the policy is that we should look at these other phase 1 and 2 come budget time.
As recommended.
Yeah, so this is not the last discussion we'll be having,
no.
especially during the budget. We'll bring
We'll
this.
get ready.
Yeah, we'll bring this forward again, so.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep.
And thank you, Sam, and well, thanks for being here. And
Thank
Mr.
you
Schmidt,
all.
thank you very much for your work on this. We appreciate it. Okay. All right, let's move on to appointments. There's one appointment to the Environmental Forest, well, no, it's to the Plan Commission of the Environmental Forestry Sustainability Representative to the Plan Commission, and I'd like to appoint King Poor to that position. King is replacing Liz Kunkel, who stays on the EFSC, but just moves off the Plan Commission, and King's term would expire on May 1st, 2028. May I have a motion to approve that appointment?
Moved.
And that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? Great. King, congratulations. Closed session, none. Adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.